Undertale, released in 2015 by Toby Fox, has become undoubtedly one of the most celebrated indie games of all time, so it may be somewhat surprising that I, an avid gamer, only just experienced it for myself a few months ago. For the longest time, I was completely oblivious to the nature of the game or its apparent widespread appeal, so I'm happy to report I found out, only 3 years later. There are a variety of reasons why the game may have garnered so much attention. Lovable characters, hilarious dialogue, surprising gameplay, but I think the music is an equally important variable here. It has a bit of a reputation for overall awesomeness. See, to me, the music is the next biggest thing apart from gameplay that makes Undertale such an impactful experience. So today, on the first episode of OST Scrutiny, I'll be doing an in-depth review of some of my favorite Undertale tracks and try to explain why I found them so effective at telling the story. Let's start at the beginning. The first thing you hear upon booting the game is the appropriately titled Once Upon a Time. Its purpose is to emulate the feeling of being told a story, say right from a picture book, and it does so very well. During my first playthrough, right about when the music changes near the Mount Abbott screen, I distinctly remember feeling, this is the start of something important. Once you get control of your character Frisk, a small flower is the first to greet you, becoming your self-appointed guide to the underground. His name is Flowey, and much like he is physically, his theme is deceptively friendly, but he ain't fooling me. I love it when music can create an abrupt change in emotion from the player. When Fallen Down started to play, wait, hold up. Who's this? Toriel is your guardian angel, and her theme is just as sweet as her demeanor. You'll soon find out Toriel deeply cares for Frisk's well-being. Come to find, she's an adorable, loving mother type. Aw. Her theme really is perfect for her. It sounds gentle, caring. After 2 measures, the bass enters the mix, adding this luscious, deep new soul to the track. Home immediately caught my interest when I noticed that Toby, very deliberately, made all the guitar notes play out of time. Look what happens if I try to sync it with a click track. I had to think about why he might have done this, but I think what he was going for was something like this. When you're playing your instrument for your family and friends at home, you're not really concerned about getting it perfect, right? Home is evocative of home. A safe place, free of judgment, where you're surrounded by those who love and care for you. So naturally, it's time to hightail it out of there. Frisk is determined to leave home and find a way back up to the surface. Toriel, protective to a fault, of course tries to intervene, but eventually decides to test if Frisk is strong enough to survive beyond the confines of the ruins. And of course, what other more reliable way is there to test your strength in this world than a battle? At this point, I'd come to love Toriel as a character. She's selfless, sweet, and up until this point entirely gentle. So to have the game pin me against her in battle, that was powerful. I didn't know at that point that if the mercy option wasn't working, you could keep on trying until it did. That felt really bad. Later I found out just how wrong I was, and you can bet I made my second playthrough a true pacifist so I could make it right. This track contains a simple, yet powerfully bold melody. The battle just feels so weighty. And the track's name, Heartache, oh how apt. The execution in this section of the game was excellent. You've left the ruins now, and you're going to have to face your fair share of baddies. These enemies can be a threat at times, yes, but nothing you can't handle if you just think strategically and act on your toes. This generic battle theme communicates the idea that, hey, battling can be fun. And of course, fun means different things to different people. Sands is a track I swear I've heard before. Like, guys, I've heard this exact track years before there was a game about skeletons that tell bad puns. Though I may just be misremembering things, still, there's something to be said about a track that sounds instantly familiar, like a friend that you immediately get along with the moment you meet. It's a very jazzy riff, and very cool. Is that what? I think that's what Papyrus said. Snowy is an area of uncertainty. You only just left the ruins and don't quite know what lies beyond, so Frisk is understandably a little on edge. The track is soaked in reverb, and the slow tempo allows the notes to ring out for a long time. Both of these contribute to making Snowy feel large and empty, but the piano also gives it a sense of peace and tranquility. Something changes the moment you hit SNOWDIN Town, however. What used to sound uncertain now sounds hopeful. What before was empty is now full of life. And that perfectly matches the gameplay too, as you can go for several screens in Snowy and not see a single person, but in town, there are people around every corner. This sense of life and community in SNOWDIN Town carries on into its shop theme. The local shopkeeper in Snowdin is very friendly and totally down to earth, a trait that all of the store owners share, in fact. Well, almost. The shopkeepers in Undertale all have wonderful insights about their respective locations and life in the underground in general. They're such a pleasure to talk to. The shop theme, calm and perhaps a little nostalgic, does wonders for setting the mood. Nyehehe is the name for Papyrus's funny little tune. It's a charming 8-bit ditty that's also insanely catchy. I want to say that I was whistling it for 2 weeks non-stop after first hearing it. As a character theme, it really sells the idea that Papyrus wants to be great at everything he does, but he's just a big goof. I was pretty sure for a while that there was no way you could make this theme any better. I was shocked by how much new life BONETROUSLE breathed into Papyrus's theme. Those drums! They're so punchy they give me shivers, they're that good. It was a huge whoa moment for me, and I just had the biggest smile. Okay, let's take a step back, because in order to properly explain this game's soundtrack, we need to talk about leitmotifs. Leitmotif, noun, a recurrent theme throughout a musical or literary composition associated with a particular person, idea, or situation. We see leitmotifs in popular culture everywhere. In fact, film scores have been using them forever. Each of these leitmotifs stand for something in their respective universe, whether it be Harry's pet owl, or Luke's aspirations to become a Jedi. Toby makes extensive use of leitmotifs in Undertale's soundtrack, but okay, we need some examples. Hopes and Dreams, the final boss theme for Azrael Dreamer, is hiding Flowey's theme, Your Best Friend. It's a long story, but it's revealed that Azrael and Flowey are actually one and the same, so it makes absolute sense for this boss theme to reference his floral form. Or what Toby will do a lot sometimes is paint the same melody in different contexts within the same scene. Take Dating Start from the beginning of your date with Papyrus and compare it to Dating Fight when things get amped up. It's the same idea musically, but with wildly different moods behind them. So do you see how Toby sort of hides these leitmotifs in order to suggest deeper meaning? That's essentially why it's such a good idea to use leitmotifs in soundtracks, since it unifies the central ideas of the plot without words. It's a super awesome concept. Let's now take a look at some more character-specific tracks, and see if you can spot any recurrent melodies. If her appearance was any indication, UNDYNE is a character that you don't mess around with. Just take a listen to her homeworld's theme, Waterfall, and you'll immediately get it. This track utilizes the deepest notes yet at this point in the game, which signifies the shift in tone in the environment. UNDYNE's battle theme is boss. And really, would you expect anything different from her? The horn stabs, the upbeat tempo, it's a theme befitting a crazed warrior. It goes up a key right here, which I've always thought of as UNDYNE's unrelenting assault on Frisk. She just keeps pummeling you with those attacks and isn't even getting tired. I freaking love Mettaton's themes. The introductory variant, It's Showtime, is simply bouncing with cheeriness and whimsy. I find it hard not to sway my body with the rhythm. But watch this, because it's about to get way cooler. With a sound reminiscent of fax machines in AOL, Mettaton's game show host theme, Metal Crusher, sputters to a start. You really get that robot vibe now, what with all the beeps, whizzes, and whirs. The melodies here are flamboyant, so lively and out there, but it all still works, and ridiculously well, might I add. This guy's got panache, alright. The culmination of all that is Mettaton, I think, has gotta be Death by Glamour. He's never been livelier, never spunkier, and certainly never as flamboyant until you see him here, and I love it. Mettaton's biggest dream is to entertain and be the biggest personality he can be, and that's reflected musically with the biggest, richest sound yet. So much soul. Add slap bass and saxophone and you've got a recipe for a funky time. What a smokin' groove. Starting with an insanely creative sample loop reminiscent of the Roaring '20s, this ditty really razzes my berries, if you're picking up what I'm laying down. A surprising bass line cuts in that seems to stutter like a broken record. In fact, the whole track seems to also suffer from this stutter, creating funky toe-tapping riffs. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Sans, you're a fun dinner date, but you're also totally creepy, intermittently. No offense. Don't be fooled by its uneasy intro. This jazz piano piece ends up kinda comfy by the midpoint. The background hustle and bustle was a sly addition, I think. I'm a big fan of that thumping bass. Sounds like triumph in the face of adversity, and a whole slew of adversity at that. This track sounds like defeating hordes of enemies one after the other, and persevering till the end. And what do you know? That's exactly what's happening in the game while it plays. Ain't that just the neatest? Undertale, the track, is beautiful. There's just too many good things to say about it. For one, that's a real guitar you're hearing, which I'm near positive is the only live guitar on the OST. Second, it plays during a pivotal story moment. Frisk enters new home, whereupon the player learns the story of Azrael and the first human. It quiets down when Frisk enters the basement. But picks right back up again when the story hits a critical moment. For most players, I expect there's a lot of emotional resonance here. The leitmotifs for both Home and Once Upon a Time are fused to tell a stirring story about the source of the war between monsters and humans. It can really pack an emotional punch, and the instrumentation and arrangement is terrific in my opinion. This track is scarier the more atrocious your actions were. If you played vicious, it kinda gets to you. Remember Flowey? Turns out he's kind of important. If you can't already tell by these strings that this guy's seriously evil, just wait until you see how he goes absolutely insane. Your best nightmare is the best kind of noisy, totally jarring, and deftly intricate. Bonus points for the drum and bass pattern, which I always adore. Towards the end of the fight, the tables get turned. Frisk finds a way to reverse the flower power, and Flowey's own theme music triumphantly mocks him as Frisk begins to get the upper hand. In other words, you give him a taste of his own medicine, and that's represented fantastically in the score. A beautiful track, if only because it represents the culmination of a long and arduous journey. It's the Say One Last Goodbye to Everyone in the Underground track, too. Hey, I remember you. You too. Oh, that guy's still around? Nice. There's a lot of musical diversity, with early game leitmotifs getting called back on to remind you of the good old times. I'm a particular fan of this real bassy section. Memories of jokes, charming dialogue, and townsfolk stories come floating back when I hear it. You know me, I love me a good bass line with some soul. So, I think one of Toby's greatest strengths as a composer is his understanding of how to make the most out of a leitmotif. He knew to keep a sense of continuity during Mettaton's various antics. He knew he would strike an emotional chord when he included a reference to Heartache in Asgore's theme. And he knew that developing the simple melody Memory throughout the course of the game could make a world of impact towards its final rendition, Hopes and Dreams. What I keep coming back to, and what really impresses me about Toby, is that the guy understands mood, and he seems to always have the right track ready. So whether his game calls for something groovy, goofy, cute, or even chill, the man consistently nails them all on the head. It's hard to argue that Undertale's narrative would be nearly so impactful, so memorable, if Toby hadn't put so much care into his music. Emotional moments are enhanced, characters' personalities are able to fully shine, and thrilling moments like battles are only thrilling because you have great music to pump you up. I'll close with Respite, because that's how the game closes its story during its best ending. During this ending, nobody dies, Flowey's threat is neutralized, and the monsters are able to return to the surface for the first time in centuries. That sunset is a premonition of hope. For once, the deep notes of piano should imbue the player not with a sense of dread, not of fear or unease, but of a sure sense that peace is soon coming, and the future is bright. Hi, my name is Christian, and thank you for your interest in my show OST Scrutiny. For years, video game music has been my passion, and that's why I wanted to create a show that celebrates it, that shows off some of the very best, and analyzes what makes it so great or so effective. And because I believe music is something that we're all capable of enjoying, I want to present the music more on an emotional level than a scientific one. So yes, music theory has its place. You can go to 8-bit music theory, for example, if you like that kind of stuff. But emotion is something that we can all understand, regardless of our backgrounds in music. The main thing I do here on this channel is upload to my series High Score, which is a show about me composing video game music from scratch. One of the latest episodes I did was on Undertale, so I donned the Frisk cosplay, as you can see, and tried to channel my inner Toby Fox to compose 2 more Undertale tracks that could have been in the game, potentially. Maybe now that the soundtrack's so fresh in your mind, you can go check that out and see how close I got to nailing the spirit of Undertale. That's all I got for announcement type stuff. If you made it this far, thank you kindly. One of the things I'd like to ask is if you like this video, please share it. On Facebook, Twitter, word of mouth. If you can think of any friends or followers that you think might enjoy this content, then I'd super appreciate it. Thank you to RESPITE, my patron, and thank you for watching.